Look at the picture.
Wake up, white people.
Because I choose not to focus on race, I have actually been labeled a racist and a white supremacist. And if anyone took the time to actually know me, it's not true at all.
And that's true about white supremacy. You are until you're not.
White power, 1, 2, 3, 4!
Neo-Nazis marching in the streets of an American city.
Accused of being a Nazi sympathizer.
But white supremacists across the country are re-energized after Charlottesville.
We have to exterminate white people off of the face of the planet to solve this problem.
There can be no white race without the phenomenon of white supremacists.
You know, I know nothing about David Duke. I know nothing about white supremacists. And so you're asking me a question that I'm supposed to be talking about people that I know nothing about.
I'm a white boy looking for a place to do my thing.
My name is Jim Goad, and I am supremely white. I'm here with my friend Keith E. Lee, who is also, as far as I can tell, white. I think I might be whiter than you, Keith, because I've got my ancestry composition. 23andme.com. James T. Goad. I am 100% James T. Goad. 100% European. 97.2% Northwestern European. Of that, 74.7% is British and Irish. 5.1% French and German. 0.2% Scandinavian. An additional 17.3% broadly Northwestern European. 1.9% Southern European. That includes 0.3% Italian, which depresses me.
Yeah.
And 1.7% broadly Southern European. So I am supremely white. Now, the next thing I want to say is not a disavowal, because it doesn't offend me, but I don't think I would qualify as a white supremacist. I am called that all the fucking time. And the theme of this episode is the ridiculous, hyperbolic, almost always inaccurate overuse of the term white supremacist. Where do you stand on this, Keith? Are you a white supremacist?
No, I've never really even thought about my race too much until I was kind of, beat over the head with it every day.
Yeah, who would you say is a master race?
I would say, it seems like, at least in America, my experience has been that Asians do really, really well, and don't complain either.
You're just avoiding the JQ. But anyway, we're going to go, we're going to read The Week That Perished at Tacky's Magazine here. If anyone doesn't know what the JQ is, it's the Jim question. Like, where does Jim stand on anything? The Week That Perished on tackymag.com, TAKIMAG.com, produced by Tacky Theodorakopoulos and commandeered by his daughter Mandalina Theodorakopoulos. See, I got this 7-letter name. I've got fewer letters in my name than they have syllables in their names. Jim Gold. Might as well be Korean. I think the only people who have shorter names than me are Koreans. All right, The Week That Perished. The week's dippiest, drippiest, and yippiest headlines. Antifa versus blacks. Antifa, pronounced Antifa, although there's some controversy about that. I think actually they don't even know how to pronounce it because it's all over the place. Some people say Antifa, but the consensus seems to be Antifa, like Queen Latifah. Antifa is a group of psychopathically self-righteous masked pussies who live with their parents, and that links to an article. There was some study in Berlin. Something like 92% of these leftist street agitators live with their family. So they live with their parents and refer to all non-members as fascists, whereupon they proceed to club the accused Nazi skulls with nail-studded baseball bats to atone for perceived historical sins. They are at least partially financed by George Soros's Open Society Institute, yet remain blissfully unaware that they are the cowardly pawns of global power rather than its brave opponents. Because intersectional pissing matches between the patchwork of deranged identity groups that form the modern left is one of the only forms of comedy remaining in this increasingly dramatic and even tragic world. We glean tremendous mirth from the fact that Antifa's almost entirely white ranks are turning against black people who don't submit to their every psychotic whim. On August 19th in Dallas, throngs of historically illiterate cretins gathered together to work out their lifelong resentment against their parents by hooting and howling in the streets about how all monuments to the Confederacy need to be smashed and crushed. And that's the thing, I've noted this before many times. What's hilarious about this anti-fascist thing, their imagery and their attitude, it's totally totalitarian and fascist. Destroy, crush, dehumanize, kill, roll over with steamrollers, pile up dead bodies, rape their women. It's like, okay, because you're fighting fascism. That's really psychologically very curious. In an amusing incident that recalls the severe dressing down a black guy gave to a white Antifa geek in Auburn, Alabama earlier this year. You've seen that video, right, Keith?
Absolutely, loved it.
I think it was Richard Spencer was speaking there, and the Antifa guys were running around playing drums and sniffing each other's armpits and chanting, and the one guy's screaming, "Nazi punks, fuck off." It's like, that's original. What the hell old is that song, like 40 years?
Right.
But some local black dude's like, get the fuck out of this town. You don't know what. And like the little Antifa guy put his tail between his legs, and because he didn't know what to do when one of his pet minorities barked back at him. He thought they were allies. But it's not the case anymore. All right. In an amusing incident that recalls the severe dressing down a black guy gave to a white Antifa geek in Auburn, Alabama earlier this year, an alleged Crip. Where do you stand on the Crips versus Bloods controversy, Keith? Do you have a preference?
I'm going to side with the Bloods because I live in their territory. Crips' territory is a few blocks over, so I don't want to get shot or have my home get shot at again.
I think the Crips are more powerful in general, but I could be wrong. An alleged Crip. Actually, we're gonna have several sidetracks today. When I first got into prison, they give you these belts, those kind of canvas belts with the brass buckles that you run through the brass thing to tighten them. Well, they gave me one that must have been for heavy D. It was like, a 48 large. So I had the side of it kind of hanging down almost to my knee. And I just got to prison. I was eating alone at a table, and the cop comes up. He's like, what's with the belt? I'm like, East Side Crips. He's like, come with me to the office. That was not something you joke about, apparently. All right.
No, I don't think so.
Earlier this year, an alleged Crip wearing a giant cowboy hat. I don't know if this is a new style move for them. If they're,
I love it.
They're reclaiming the South. I'm not sure. A giant cowboy hat squared off with a fat white masked Antifa member. And I'm going to do a lot of fat shaming in this column. I'm sick and tired of these fat people. With a fat white masked Antifa member telling the group of neo-commie white savior misfits to get the hell out of his town. In response, the masked chubster sucker punched the black guy in the face. For some unknown reason, the American mainstream media was silent about this horrifying hate crime that was captured on video. The next night, a young black Trump supporter named R.C. Maxwell was sucker punched by an overweight, unmasked, anti-fascist loser during an anti-illegal immigration rally in Laguna Beach, California. The alleged assailant, 20-year-old Richard Losey of Ohio, was arrested last Tuesday on suspicion of misdemeanor battery. R.C. Maxwell, the young, somewhat effeminate black conservative, wrote the following in a blog post. Now, I've tried working on my young, somewhat effeminate black conservative voice. Not sure I have it, but I'm going to do my best here. I think the main inspiration is Michael Jackson. I'm not really sure. I showed up in Orange County and got punched in the face by Antifa. My name is R.C. Maxwell, and I'm a victim of leftist violence. The media won't show me because it will detract from their narrative. I knew that leftist groups were inspired to ramp up their violent attacks against Trump supporters after the mess that was Unite the Right in Charlottesville. What I didn't expect was that I would become Antifa's target so quickly. I took a punch for Trump in Laguna Beach. Not because I had to, but because I wanted to expose to the nation how violent leftist agitators are. I love that line, I took a punch for Trump in Laguna Beach. Sounds like a Jimmy Buffett song.
It does.
And I drank some Hawaiian punch for Trump in Laguna Beach. Okay. And the punchline to this segment is, in order to fight Nazis, apparently you have to punch a few black people now. Next item. Good night, left nut. The funniest Benny Hill-styled slapstick of the week came last Tuesday night in Phoenix when riot police fired a tear gas canister square into a gas mask-wearing chubby Antifa protester's groin, sending him to the ground in pain. People originally thought that 29-year-old Joshua Stewart Corbin, a worker for web giant GoDaddy, had been hit with a pepper ball, leading to several memes referring to Corbin as pepper balls, and a parody of an Antifa slogan titled "Good Night, Left Nut." Try this again, Jim Bob. And a parody of an Antifa slogan titled "Good Night, Left Nut." From a hospital bed now, I've since been informed this might be a hoax video. It seemed realistic to me, so take this either way. From a hospital bed with his face covered, Corbyn made a video addressing his brothers and sisters in Antifa about how he was fighting Nazis, who in this case were supposedly the Phoenix Police. And if this was a parody, really good job. they totally get fucking brothers and sisters who were out fighting the fucking Nazis and his fucking Nazis. His tone was much less defiant when he told a reporter, I was out there just minding my own business, and that he had a right to peaceably assemble and protest the Nazis he's always hallucinating in his fever dreams. However, Phoenix police arrested him and charged him with 3 felony counts of assault against a police officer and 1 misdemeanor count of unlawful assembly. A police report claims that surveillance footage shows Corbyn threw 2 gas canisters at police and kicked another 2 canisters toward them. Good luck in court, pepperballs. Item. Man stabbed for neo-Nazi haircut. This is, I mean, holy fuck. In case you needed more evidence that the country has gone completely Nazi crazy, a Colorado man was stabbed by a man who thought he had a Nazi haircut. According to Joshua Witt, he was getting out of his car in a Steak and Shake parking lot when a man ran up to him and said, "Are you one of them neo-Nazis?" and began swinging a knife at him. Witt deflected the knife with his hand, suffering a slash wound that required stitches. Apparently, my haircut is considered a neo-Nazi statement, Witt told the New York Post. Witt says he is not a Nazi and is considering a new hairdo. You know what happens when you say you're not a Nazi these days, Keith?
They punch you anyway?
They punch you and say you're a Nazi in denial.
Oh, right, of course.
There's
yeah.
really
Which
no
is even
way
worse.
out. For them, all they need is the accusation. It's like, you know, the trial, jury, conviction, and you don't even know what you did.
Tag, you're a Nazi.
Here we go. Asian broadcaster named Robert Lee dropped from announcing a Virginia football game, because everyone of sound mind and body knows that it was an inanimate statue of a dead Confederate general that caused the bloodshed in Charlottesville, Virginia earlier this month. Sports network ESPN decided to pull announcer Robert Lee from a September 2nd football game between the University of Virginia and William and Mary, according to an ESPN statement. We collectively made the decision with Robert to switch games to the tragic events in Charlottesville, as the tragic events in Charlottesville were unfolding, simply because of the coincidence of his name. In that moment, it felt right to all parties. It's a shame that this is even a topic of conversation, and we regret that who calls play-by-play for a football game has become an issue. Well, asshole, you're the one who made it an issue in the first place. What the fuck are you talking about? Anyway, as it turns out, Robert Lee is Asian. Therefore, his name is pronounced Lobert Ree. So what's with all the fuss? I don't know. They're just going wild. They're going Nazi, Confederate crazy.
It's really crazy, yeah.
This,
I guess my name will be offensive eventually.
Way beyond the satanic panic at this point. What was it? I said, I put something on Twitter last week. I'm not a Christian, so I can't be a witch hunter. And that's every modern witch hunter. And the Church of Satan, which still exists, apparently, even long after Anton LaVey died, tweeted at me, well, 80s kids remember. And, well, yeah, that's not modern, you dumb motherfuckers. It's not risky to be a Satanist. Where are Satanists getting punched in the fucking streets? Who's accusing anyone of being a Satanist these days? Pretty mainstream, guys. Gotta come up with something a little more transgressive than Satan.
Well, there's also the Temple of Satan, which is kind of like a left-wing organization. They came out this week and said that they don't want Satan to be associated with, Donald Trump or Charlottesville or white supremacy or anything like that.
This goes way back to that first South Park movie where Satan was Saddam Hussein's bitch, which I guess even at the time implied Saddam Hussein was more evil.
Right.
And, the entire cultural climate pretty much is anti-Christian at this point. Not that I'm a Christian or sympathize with them, really, but to be a Satanist, not quite an edgelord anymore. Next item. Make way for transgender tobogganists. The International Olympic Committee has announced that transgender athletes will be able to compete in the 2018 Winter Olympics, meaning that South Korea's Olympic ski slopes and skating rinks will be glutted with dudes who think they're chicks, stealing gold and silver medals from chicks who identify with the gender they were assigned at birth, which is a very clunky way of saying their gender. We wait with bated breath to see who will win the male-to-female luge contest and the cross-country skiing for cross-dressers competition. Keith, do you have any opinions on... I don't see any male athletes being threatened by this. If you want to get some diesel dyke switching teams. I don't think still don't think no matter how many testosterone injections she gets or muscle implants, she's not going to win the deadlift competition or even the discus throwing or maybe not even male ping pong. Problem seems to be that if you have these guys who think they're chicks competing with women, they're going to slaughter them in just about every case.
Of course. The thing to me, it kills me whenever I hear the gender assigned at birth. Like the connotation is that there's some kind of mistake. What I guess the doctor made. The doctor can't assign an accurate gender, but he can deliver the baby. It's like you can trust him to deliver the baby, but not assign gender. It's really weird.
What's insane, and so much about this transgender nonsense is completely insane and counterfactual and unrealistic. There's this implication, the gender they were assigned at birth, that they actually have someone whose job this is to sit there and says, well, had a good lunch, you're a boy.
Right.
Oh, wait, my stomach's a little upset, you're a girl. Like arbitrarily random. No, there's a penis or vagina in what, 99.999999% of cases? Oh, a penis. That's a boy. Oh, vagina, girl. Nature assigned them their gender, you fucking assholes. And they also say there's something different between gender and sex. I don't see the difference.
No, and that right. And this is, I think, a product of this is what happens when you inject feminism into biology or science like that. You start, it's insane. I don't know.
There's all sorts of car crashes with this shit because have you ever heard of the TERFs? It's an acronym TERF, Trans Exclusionary Radical Feminists. They don't like the trannies because it's like, you know what? This is our struggle. You're not a woman. You're just trying to get out of your male guilt.
Jesus.
So I think not sure it's feminists driving this shit more than the queer activists or whatever they are now. The sexually ambiguous. Final item. Muslim member of parliament tells Rotherham abuse victims to shut up. England's Rotherham child sexual exploitation scandal is one of the most egregious examples of the global leftist Ministry of Truth's tendency to allow for any atrocity, no matter how ghastly, so long as the perpetrators are from a designated victim group and the victims are from a designated perpetrator group. Let me say that again. Allow for any atrocity, no matter how ghastly, so long as the perpetrators are from a designated victim group and the victims are from a designated perpetrator group. Because when the designated victim group smashes you in the face and stabs your mother to death, that's just justice. That's not murder. From 1997 to 2013, an estimated 1,400 Indigenous British girls aged 11 to 15 were raped and tortured and brutalized and terrorized by Muslims of Pakistani origin. Police ignored countless complaints for fear of being called racist, which these days is apparently worse than actually being a rapist. Now comes... I'm doing this a lot. I have to learn how to stop that. Not sure why.
Got the cotton mouth.
Let me take... got a little bit of cotton mouth going on. Let me take a sip of my blueberry juice. I'll be right back here. Now comes news that a female Labour MP named Naz Shah, ethnically a Pakistani, nominally an Englishwoman, approved of a comment on Twitter that, quote, abused girls in Rotherham, close quote, should shut their mouths for the good of diversity. After a backlash, a spokesman for Shah said the tweet was a genuine mistake. Was it as genuine a mistake as importing countless Pakistanis to Britain in the first place? I love this. You see this many times. Somebody will go on Twitter, kill niggers, or I was drunk. I slipped up.
Right.
How is that a mistake? Where they, yes, they should shut their mouths for diversity. I just, accidentally click like. What about? Do you think it's worse for her to say that they should shut their mouths, or was it worse to start importing Muslims en masse to the UK?
Well, I guess if they hadn't been importing them, she wouldn't be there, I guess. So that would kill two birds with one stone.
Oh, kill Keith, you got to watch the hate speech calling for.
Whoa, sorry, I was drunk. I didn't mean it. It was an accident.
There you go. You're learning. You're learning. Learning very, very quickly. Keith, it's seems like it's a sunny afternoon here in Georgia. What are you going to do?
Probably going to go firearm shopping.
Are you really?
Yeah, I'm looking at a Sig Sauer. You know, need to up my game here.
Sig Sauer. That's German.
You didn't have to say that, though. I don't want anybody to make any connotations or, not trying to suggest that I'm anything but a nice Stone Mountain resident, not affiliated with any parties or anything like that.
I heard a story once that these sharp skinheads in Portland, they attacked a German guy who didn't apologize. I don't know how true that is, but yeah, those Germans, I'd really hate inventing so many things.
Yeah, I guess we wouldn't have the highway system without the Germans, right?
Well, I think it was Norm Macdonald. He said something like, the Germans are so powerful. They declared war on the world twice and almost won. I've been in Germany once. It was in 1985 while Die Mauer, the wall, was still up. And I was in the throes of collegiate Marxist pop culture inbred idiocy. But even then, I had these little tuggings. It's like, well, I could see how these guys could threaten for global supremacy twice, because everything's very efficient and clean.
Yep.
But you're not allowed to be proud of that. You are allowed to be proud if you come from, say, southern Sudan, where people eat insects and sniff each other's assholes all day.
Speaking of Germans and insects, did you know that other people in Europe, if they want to describe Germans in a, let's say, not a very flattering way, they call them ant fuckers, because they pay such attention to detail. They're so uptight, so they call them ant fuckers.
Ant fuckers. Well, that's something that Asians get accused of too. Is humorless, conformist. I guess what would now be called autistic, devotion to facts. Realistic people. Not the righteous, emotion-driven hordes. Well, Keith, God bless you. May the road rise to greet you. I'm not doing yoga at the moment, but I wish you sincerely namaste. You have no choice but to stay white. Just don't be supreme, Keith.
I will, but I still like the Supremes. Is that okay?
Diana Ross and the White Supremes. There you go. I'll see you next week, mister.
Thank you, sir. Take care.
Bye. Where are all the white supremacists? I woke up this morning, sneezed, and then suddenly every white person in the world was a white supremacist. And if they try to deny it, well, that only means they are white supremacists who lie about it. Still flailing desperately like a half-crushed bug about its electoral defeat last November, the modern left is tossing the term white supremacist at any suspected counter-revolutionaries with the same zealous abandon that Antifa chucks urine-filled bottles at old white ladies who wave American flags. We are led to believe that race doesn't exist, which would imply that white people don't exist either, but that through some sort of socially righteous prestidigitation, white people are easy to spot and must be scapegoated for all human, animal, and plant suffering across the universe from the dawn of time. And if you think that's a ridiculous burden to bear, that's only because you're a white supremacist. For about a quarter century, I've been accused of being a white supremacist for no other apparent reason than the fact that I don't apologize for my skin color and don't feel one sliver of guilt for history. I've never felt the need to say that white people are the best on earth, but this isn't what gets me labeled a white supremacist. It's my refusal to say they're the worst group on earth. I've often said I've never run across a true Holocaust denier, in the sense that I've never seen anyone say Hitler loved Jews and that the Germans didn't kill any Hebes in World War II. Every denier I've ever seen only quibbles about numbers and methods of killing and how the Holocaust is used as a political weapon. So in essence, I deny the existence of Holocaust denial. In the same sense, I'm not sure in my long and arduous research that I've ever encountered a white supremacist, at least according to the official definition. According to Merriam-Webster, a white supremacist is a person who believes that the white race is inherently superior to other races, and that white people should have control over people of other races. Wikipedia defines white supremacy thusly: a racist ideology based upon the belief that white people are superior in many ways to people of other races, and that therefore white people should be dominant over other races. Of all the alleged white supremacists I've known, and that's at least enough to fill a small dinner theater for a musical tribute to Al Jolson, I'd estimate that only a slim quotient has even gone so far as to say that whites are superior to all others. And I can't recall a single one of them ever saying that, quote, white people should have control over people of other races. At most, they just want to get the hell away from other races. Those would accurately be termed white separatists or white nationalists. But the modern media, government, banking complex doesn't seem to care about accuracy nearly as much as they enjoy hunting white witches. These days, being called a white supremacist is only different from being called a witch, in that they don't even bother dunking you in the river before declaring you guilty. I covered this in my interview with Jared Taylor a couple weeks ago. Taylor identifies as a race realist, and has been quite candid in saying that Asians are objectively superior to whites. Still, Wikipedia insists on calling him a white supremacist, on the same page that they note his comments about Asian superiority. Exactly how much mental yoga does it take to call someone a white supremacist when they've clearly explained why they aren't? And why is the word supremacist used almost entirely to smear white identity groups and no others? A quick Google search yielded the following: white supremacist, 9,680,000 results. Jewish supremacist, 192,000 results. Black supremacist, 110,000 results. Asian supremacist, only 2,670 results. Pardon me for noticing, but the term God's chosen people is one of the most baldly supremacist notions ever concocted. It takes supremacy all the way up to the cosmic plane. And at least over the past generation, I've witnessed far more Jewish, black, and Asian people than whites claiming to be members of the master race. For the most part, all these alleged white supremacists are simply sick of the constant defamation. It's almost as if the people who lob the term white supremacist with impunity are either painfully stupid or deeply malicious. And despite the relentless gaslighting, one needn't be a paranoid schizophrenic to suspect there's an explicitly anti-white agenda underlying it all. Then again, even insinuating that anything could possibly be anti-white automatically gets you labeled a white supremacist. Reality TV star Mike Rowe of Dirty Jobs fame was recently accused of supporting white nationalism because he didn't explicitly condemn Donald Trump's factually accurate comment that there was violence on both sides in Charlottesville. Rowe fired back that he felt no need to do the whole hair shirt wearing disavowal tap dance because the very request to do so is, quote, annoying. Despite taking great pains to distance himself from white identity movements, Charles Murray has been smeared by the Southern Poverty Law Center as a white nationalist. Perhaps people should start suing anyone who makes such an accusation, because in this climate, it's effectively an invitation to commit violence against someone. Such propaganda actually led to violence in Murray's case earlier this year. When organizers for a group called Patriot Prayer, a group that does not mention race at all, attempted to hold a rally in San Francisco recently, Nancy Pelosi defamed them as white nationalists, and others called them white supremacists. Naturally, the rally was canceled as a result. After the Charlottesville debacle, former Vice President Joe Biden said that Donald Trump has emboldened white supremacists by drawing a false moral equivalency, quote, between neo-Nazis and Klansmen and those who would oppose their venom and hate. Huh. All I got from what Trump said was a factually irrefutable statement that there was violence on both sides. Saying that one side dripped with venom, while the other side was merely there to oppose venom drippers, is either dishonest or stupid. A Twitter account called Yes, You're Racist which is devoted to calling people racist and destroying their lives as a result, showed a picture of a man rallying with right-wingers in Charlottesville while wearing a shirt with an Arkansas engineering emblem. The digital torch mob wound up targeting and harassing Kyle Quinn, who works at the University of Arkansas. It turns out that they were wrong. Quinn was not the man in the picture. But being wrong hardly seems to matter to fanatics. When Bernie Sanders told a Latina woman that she should focus not only on her race, but on fighting Wall Street and corporate America, he was accused of, quote, defending white supremacy. Perhaps the most egregious example of this new white scare happened in Boston the weekend before last. A Boston free speech rally that attracted a few dozen attendees who bent over backwards and grabbed their ankles trying to distance themselves from racism and white supremacy were met with a crowd of 40,000 fanatics screaming about Nazis. A Boston Globe reporter recalls the tragic question a counter-protester asked him. "Excuse me, where are the white supremacists?" "They're all in your propaganda-addled brain, you fool. And they're hiding under your bed as you sleep."
Oh, honey.
All right, then. This is Jim Goad blasting to you from down on the farm in Georgia. On the other line, I got Ramsey Paul, a.k.a. Paul Ray Ramsey, known as, in some circles, as the smiling Nazi, the smiling nationalist, defines himself as a nationalist who is white, does not stop him from getting called a white nationalist and a white supremacist. Hello. What do you get called? Ramsey, Paul?
Yeah, you could call me Paul. I go by Ramsey Paul. And yeah, that smiley nationalist that was from the SPLC. It was a hit article they did on me. It's funny because I've done multiple videos explaining why I'm not a white nationalist, but they didn't bother to look at that or care. So
I found over the years you can't explain enough. It doesn't matter.
Unless you think that whites are horrible, evil people, you're a white nationalist or a white supremacist, as they would call it. So it's kind of a losing battle that way. You just have to be true to yourself.
Is supremacist even a word? Because I hear that all the time, white supremacist. I'm not even sure that's actually a word, but that's...
I think it's supremacist, but some people, they mispronounce it supremacist, so I kind of like to make fun of it. So
what's... David Duke once wrote something called My Journey about how he got whatever Duke pilled or yellow. I'm not sure what kind of pill David Duke took. I think with him he went to India and it changed him. But you say you've been conservative your whole life?
Yeah, I guess libertarian conservative. I went through my libertarian phase, Ayn Rand and all that in college. And actually, it's when I started doing my videos 7 years ago. It was more of a libertarian type of thing, but then my views evolved over time.
What made your views change?
I think just looking at how libertarianism can't work, because it would work in theory if people couldn't hurt each other and you just had this magical bubble around you. But in reality, people's actions have an impact on your community. Let's say, for example, if a woman decides to pump out a lot of illegitimate children. I guess the libertarian argument is, well, fine, if no one helps her, she can starve, and her kids can starve. But see, in real life, that doesn't happen. People feel sad, they vote for help. So all these kids grow up pretty much feral, and then they end up destroying a community, so you can't go to the park and enjoy it because they're dealing drugs or whatever. So that's an example of someone's behavior in real life will impact how you live. So we don't live in a bubble, basically, is the reason libertarianism doesn't work. Now, if we did, I think it'd be the best system.
Was there a certain event that flipped you a little bit? A lot of people was Trayvon Martin, other people. With me, I lived in L.A. I was pretty liberal, late 80s, and the L.A. riots happened. And just the way black people looked at me after that, I realized it didn't matter how nice I was still white, and I was marked just because of my skin color.
Yeah, I understood that blacks were different from a kid. I guess my grandparents lived in South Chicago, so that was something I saw really early, that there were racial differences. I didn't become totally red-pilled until I started doing my videos, and I started to see a lot of, how the government and certain groups were really disruptive and how they try to censor us. The big censorship now we see within Google and YouTube and Facebook, it's quite scary. it's typically not blacks that are doing that. So
Right. What's happened specifically to you, like as far as deplatforming goes?
Actually, I've got off better than a lot of people, maybe because I come across a little bit more mild. I'm not sure the reason, but I've been demonetized. Pretty much, I still have ads on my YouTube videos. I think I'm just going to take them off now, though, because I don't make any revenue off of those. Because pretty much any controversial subject, and controversial means you disagree with the orthodoxy,
right,
they demonetize you. You can bring up controversial subjects as long as you take the right position, of course. But if you take a counter position, even if you're very logical, you don't say anything hateful, it doesn't matter. They consider that wrong, and they're going to do everything to punish you, from demonetizing you to they have this weird now new form of censorship where they try to hide a video. I saw that with Jared Taylor's video. Or they can just actually remove your video and ban you. So there's various levels they use.
Did you get a notice that you were being demonetized?
Yeah, every time a video is demonetized, it sent me an email saying, your video's been demonetized.
Did they say why?
No. That's the hardest thing about the censorship that I hate, and I've talked about this, is it's kind of like the old Soviet Union where people would be arrested and you never quite knew why you were being arrested, except for vague counter-revolutionary activities, but they would never explain specifically. And that was part of the horror, is sometimes you could do things in the Soviet Union and get away with it, and no one would bother you, and someone would do something that would seem very mild, and then all of a sudden the secret police would show up and arrest them. Solzhenitsyn wrote a lot about that. And we have that similar type of mindset within the current, maybe the same type of people, the current censors, where they say, okay, you can't do anything that's hateful, but what's hate? And they never really tell you. They don't really define it, and so there's no appeal. And you can't go to Google and say, hey, because I'd like to really sit down with them and say, could you just tell me what's wrong with this video? I want to abide by your policy so I can avoid that in the next time. But there's nothing like that. You just don't.
I might be getting some facts wrong here, but I think that's the plot of Franz Kafka's The Trial. The guy gets arrested, thrown in jail, sentenced, and I think convicted to death, and they don't even tell him what he did.
Exactly, and that's the thing that's demoralizing, is that you don't even know what you did exactly, and it's just very vague. It's on a whim. I've had videos that have been really mild that have been demonetized, and I've had other videos I'm like, oh, this isn't going to make it through, and they're like, meh, whatever. So it's really kind of a hit and miss. It's not a standard that you can really follow. But that's where we are right now.
What was the grossest misinterpretation of what you're all about that you've seen online? I mean, the shit that gets said up about me, at this point, it's just comedy, because you can't take it seriously. You'll wind up smashing your head through a wall. I don't know if they're dumb or it's deliberate.
Well, I think the SPLC is the most damaging. I mean, I wish I could sue them, but it's very difficult to do so, because that puts you in a tough position. Because anytime any of the media is going to do a story with you or interview you, they do a search, they see my name on the SPLC, and then they assume that the SPLC is some arbiter of justice, and they're just neutral, which is a joke.
This bugs the shit out of me, because I keep saying, I mean, even though I'm known as a maniac, I went to journalism school, graduated summa cum laude with it. I know what you're supposed to do with journalism. These fucking newspapers and every broadcast outlet in the country pretty much reprints SPLC press releases without questioning. Term hate, like you said, how do you define that? I wrote this 20 years ago. It's the problem with the idea of hate speech is it's vague. You can't measure it. It's a social construct, but they act like they know for sure what's hate. And to me, that's what's totalitarian too. It's like, well, yeah, what you say about black crime might be true statistically, but the only reason you're saying that is because you secretly feel they get right into your head and go for your motive. They don't realize that's not a method of argumentation. That seems to be what's ruling these days. I mean, I actually, I don't have a TV, but I caught 5 minutes of CNN the other day, and the first thing, Jeffrey Toobin, who apparently has been eating a lot of donuts lately, he just blew up. He said something like, I don't know how you can draw a moral equivalency between neo-Nazis and the people who are there protesting them. Well, he wasn't even talking about ideology. I think Trump was talking about these people throwing cement-filled bottles and poking people with poles and beating up old ladies for flags. And I guess a lot of people at this point, the analogy I've made all the time is PC is just reality to them. And anything that goes against that, it's just like the air and the water. They don't see that they've been sort of corralled into an ideology or brainwashed or indoctrinated. They think they're too enlightened for that. But Jesus Christ, for you not to see that these guys in Charlottesville, at least, were totally outnumbered. The cops let it happen. There's plenty of evidence of these guys being taunted, doing nothing. But all they showed, Nazis roaming the streets and this innocent girl. Well, this innocent girl was blocking the street illegally. Exactly. I'm not saying, I mean, getting into deserve, that's a whole different thing. But I'll tell you what, if the cops had been there and dispersed everybody who didn't have a permit, she wouldn't have gotten run over.
Yeah, I always like to do a kind of a thought experiment. Let's say if you flipped it, say if instead of neo-Nazis, which they weren't, but let's say they were Muslims protesting their rights. And let's say 1,000 white people showed up, started to throw stuff at the Muslims, scream at them. And then one Muslim, he's trying to get away. His car is attacked by a bunch of whites, and he runs into someone and gets out of there. Oh, it'll be a totally different reaction from the left. So, and in fact, the whole thing was a totally different reaction because that one person did something, they try to damn everyone now, right? But when a Muslim does something, the first thing we hear is, oh, well, this doesn't represent Islam at all. This is just someone that was just a loner, mentally ill. In fact, the real victims are the Muslims that will experience a backlash. So it's transparent. I don't know how effective the propaganda is. I go back and forth on it because the media is 100% controlled. They have their narrative. But the old media, the good thing is it's mostly just older people that watch it. People like that. I think their average age that watches Fox News or CNN.
It's like 70.
Yeah, they're really older. So younger people, they get their news now more on the net. And the net, you can see for yourself what happened. It's harder for them to censor. Now, that's part of the reason why I think they're trying to censor the internet is because they've lost control of being gatekeepers of information, and that frightens them. Because someone like me or anyone, they can just load something up and the media can say, oh, it was a peaceful protest, but then they, like what happened in Berkeley, but then people can load up video showing people being beat and what was happening. So that's very effective, and I think they want to try and shut that down.
I recently saw a split screen capture meme on Twitter. It had some European broadcaster, female, and they were talking about Charlottesville, and the subhead was something like "Rising Wave of Neo-Nazi White Supremacy." And they did a story on Barcelona, which happened, I think, a couple days after Charlottesville, where it wasn't a guy whose vehicle was being attacked with baseball bats in a crowded street. This was a guy who deliberately took a van and plowed through people walking around and killed 13. But the subhead for that was, we have to beware about a looming wave of Islamophobia. But when Charlottesville happened, one dead because a guy in a car, a guy who apparently was a diagnosed schizophrenic, was in a car, and the streets were wild. His car was getting attacked. And he actually, to my knowledge, he didn't hit the girl. He hit a car, and the car went into a girl.
Right.
Okay.
He was trying to get out of there. He kind of, I think, panicked, and that's probably not the thing to do. But at the same time, you're in that situation. It's quite scary. And obviously, if he was trying to kill people, he would have just kept going.
Kept going.
He didn't. He backed out and tried to get the hell out of there. So, but it's so politicized. I don't know if he'll get a fair trial or not. Probably not.
But this was used as evidence that the alt-right or whatever is violent, is out to kill, and they keep saying racism. It's like the two people involved were white. How do you get a racist? But in Barcelona, I mean, it seems like if you purposely drive a van through a crowd, there was intent there. This guy might have panicked, but what bugs me is just the way they lie about it. But if you even say that, it's like, well, that's because you're a white supremacist. Have you met white supremacists? I'm skeptical about the very existence, because even like I interviewed Jared Taylor a couple of weeks ago, who says Japanese culture is objectively superior. You go to his webpage on Wikipedia, white supremacist. Have you met anyone who says not? Because supposedly there's two conditions. The first is you say whites are superior to other races. The second is therefore they should have control and domination over other races. I'd say the guys I know that are accused of being white supremacists, maybe 10% think they're superior. And of those, maybe 5% within that 10% think they should be ruling over other races. Have you met anyone who feels that way?
No, not in person. I've seen a couple online that aren't even white that claim to be white. white supremacists. But
They're not even white? It seems like the sound went down a little bit there.
yeah, they're not even white. Some of these so-called white supremacists that claim to be white supremacists.
Now, are you putting white in 3 parentheses there? Or?
Yeah, exactly.
Okay.
So I won't say who, but no, normal people that I've met, no one, in fact, most of them, if anything, are maybe nationalists or separatists where they want to live alone. They don't want to live around others. But I've never met any that want to rule over non-whites. I've never met that. I never met a person like that. So
nearly
I never met anyone refer to themselves as a supremacist. That's more of a term to demonize. It's kind of like the term witch used to be used, or
I think it's exactly like witch.
Revolutionary.
It's exactly like witch, and it's an invitation to persecute somebody at this point, which is insane. But
Yeah.
I just did an article, and I read it before this interview was going to come in, and I did a Google search for the term white supremacist. It was nearly 10 million results. Jewish supremacist under 200,000, black supremacist 110,000, Asian 2,670. Is there a more supremacist doctrine than God's chosen people? Where I think that just takes the golden ring is that takes it up to a cosmic plane. It's not even just, because some of these guys are just, evolutionary biologists. They think due to natural selection and continental selection pressures that some groups evolved greater mean intelligence. This is like God's coming down and saying you're supreme. But if you say that's Jewish supremacy, that's only because you're a white supremacist.
Yeah, it's interesting. That's an example I bring up a lot because most of the opposition we have is actually, and that's what where I was surprised making videos. It wasn't from black groups or Hispanics groups. It's almost all Jewish groups. And in fact, the new censorship on YouTube is ADL, the Jewish group. So
how does that happen? How does
I bring
ADL?
that up because
How do they get that much control over YouTube?
they have a lot of money, a lot of influence with the people at Google. Is I think what happens is money really makes a big difference, and they're very wealthy. Whereas a lot of black organizations and other organizations are as wealthy, so that gives them power to get into these organizations. And but yeah, that's an effective point I bring up all the time. They really don't have an answer for it because a lot of the same people, like Bill Kristol or whatever, that are really, really, really strong in how we must protect Israel as a Jewish state. And I did a video about this because I was really surprised, but there's actually was a bill passed recently in the United States Senate recently, like 4 or 5 years ago, and everyone voted for it that we are dedicated as the people of America to keeping Israel Jewish. So, and that's not a tinfoil, I posted the website, it's on the government site. They all agree that we need to keep Israel Jewish. So they support an ethnic national state. Now, a lot of times Jews will say, well, yeah, but not everyone in Israel is a Jew. Well, that's true, but you have in your constitution that it will always be Jewish. It will always have the majority. And that's the reason why they keep out a lot of Muslim immigrants, which I don't really necessarily disagree with them on that point. But what's real frustrating, these same people, when other groups, let's say Hungarians, would say, hey, we want to keep Hungary for Hungarians. We don't want all these Muslim refugees to come in here because we're a Christian nation. The same Jewish groups will scream and yell and say this hate, that's Nazism, that's evil. It's this huge double standard that is so frustrating that they keep perpetuating. And they never answer really the charge. They don't really care. They just keep on with their double standard.
Talk about building a wall. I mean, aren't they pretty much like surrounded at this point? I think they have one on the southern border, and they also do, obviously, with Gaza.
Yeah, they're very nationalist, and they have, and it's kind of ironic, right? It's a group that's censoring people is themselves a racial group or ethnic group, the ADL, which is a Jewish group. It'd be like YouTube. Could you imagine if YouTube said, hey, we decided to implement the censorship policy and we're going to outsource it to the Ku Klux Klan. They're going to be deciding what videos can stay up or not. It's just crazy, but that's really the situation we are now.
It's such a, I mean, I wrote once that I'm not even sure what the Jewish question is, but I know the answer is you're an anti-Semite. Because you can't mention or notice any of these things. You can't point to clannishness or nepotism or per capita income or representation in any positions of power. We're talking about banking or media, education. That was the bitterly ironic thing to me when they had this whole Oscars So White campaign. Yes. I mean, come on. Like, there was an article, Joel Stein, in the LA Times. It was around 2007, 2008. I'm surprised it's even still up online. It said, "Who runs Hollywood?" Come on.
Yeah, it's a question that I think most people understand. I know they understand it, but because they have so much power, people are scared to mention it. Even some mainstream conservatives, even though they know better, because it's because they do have the control. And so if you want to make it in the media or whatever, that's one group that you can't really offend. You can offend Muslims easier, blacks, Hispanics, but the Jews are pretty much off limits.
Well, doesn't that, I mean, the quote, the famous quote is to see who rules over you, just look who you can't criticize. And it was misattributed to Voltaire. It turns out I think it was Kevin Alfred Strom, some National Alliance guy, somebody who's probably, you know, literally a neo-Nazi. But it's true. What bugs me, but they won't, they don't exhibit good faith. What bothers me about this is the hypocrisy. I'm a guy, my dad was a plumber. I was booted out on my ass at 19. I've had to work for everything I ever did. I've never oppressed anyone. But if I notice that some groups make more money, have more per capita influence, makes me hate them. It's like, no, I hate the hypocrisy and the lies. And I think what really grinds on me is anyone who insists what's in your own head. When they tell you what you're only saying that because you hate. It's like, well, I hate you now. Exactly. Has nothing to do with, you know, your genetic none of that. You're a liar, and people are getting hurt over it. And it says here on the SPLC thing, you are a white nationalist. You say you're not.
No, I've done multiple videos. In fact, I get a lot of crap from, you know, the real white nationalists. You know, I'm a cuck and all this. So it's kind of interesting. But I believe in nationalism for all people, and I believe nationalism is more than race. And in fact, the term white nationalist, they really don't quite understand that in Europe. I lived there quite a bit, and I was talking to one girl. She's a really right-wing, sweet girl, but I was explaining white nationalism to her, and she goes, "Oh, well, what is that?" I said, "Well, it's like when Germans get together with English." She goes, "Oh, cool, yeah, I like them." When Polish, she goes, "Oh, okay." And I said, like Russians and Irish, and she said, "Well, wait a minute, what the hell did you say?" And I said, "Irish." She goes, "No, before that." And I said, "Russians." She goes, "Russians? Well, I don't want to be a part of anything that has Russians in it." Because she came from, she was from Romania. And so they had a lot of this background where they couldn't stand Russians. And so in Europe, it's not so much racial, it's more of the ethnicity. And race is just a part of it. So, and like Romanians and Hungarians, they have a lot of tension between each other because of Transylvania. I had no idea until I lived there. So nationalism is more than race. It's also the culture. It's this language. It's a religion. It's a lot of things that come together to make a nation. It's what binds you. So yeah, race is a component, but it's much more than race. And you can have a nationalist state, let's say like Israel, right? And the Jews bring up Israel. They're a national state, even though all the people living there are Jews. But primarily the people that run it, their culture is Jewish. And I advocate that for all countries, even Japan. Japan, they're not white, but I hope they always stay Japanese. That's all nationalism is. And it's ironic that that's considered a hateful position now, because 100 years ago that was considered basically a liberal position. I think Woodrow Wilson really pushed the idea of self-determination and so forth. So it's interesting how that's now considered this Nazi position.
Well, the one thing you mentioned about, you know, Romanians and Irish, you hear that a lot from people who say there's no such thing as white people. That's a you know, a construct that doesn't have any meaning. And but you never hear the same people say, well, there's no such thing as being black. There's Zimbabweans and Somalians, but the thing is, like I've said many times, the only time the human race would have meaning is if Martians attacked, and then we're all on the same page. But you know, white does have a meaning in America because you're phenotypically different than people who aren't white.
Sure.
So when you broaden the playing field there, it becomes meaningful. But they try to deconstruct it. But what's hilarious and tragic at the same time, it's like, well, white people don't exist, but we can tell you're white and we're going to make you suffer for everything that happened throughout history. It's like, well, pick one. Both can't be true. Either white people exist and are off the hook, or you say they exist, and I guess if they don't organize for self-defense, you would tend to wipe them out.
Exactly, and I use that point all the time, because, for example, the Indians and how white people came over here and destroyed the Indians. And I'm like, well, wait a minute. If white people really don't exist, then the people that came from England primarily were just they're just like another Indian tribe, right? So what's the difference? Why do you have against one Indian tribe conquering another Indian tribe? That happened all the time here in North America. So just consider us another Indian tribe. And that gets them. Or then what do you mean by this Holocaust being a Jewish thing? Jews aren't a race, so how can you even, we need to deconstruct that. So it's just as Germans killed a bunch of Germans. So they try to have it both ways. They have this double standard that's really frustrating. And what it really is getting back to the whole ethnicity and race, it's kind of like a concentric circle where you have first you as an individual, then you have your family, then you have your neighborhood, then you have your nation. And then you have your race, and then you have like humanity. So the closer you get into the middle of the circle, the tighter bonds you naturally have. For example, even though I'm white and the Hungarian is white, they will naturally have greater bonds to a fellow Hungarian that speaks their language, shares their culture, and that's okay. That's not hate. It doesn't mean they hate me. A lot of them really like me. But see, there's this verbal thing that's been thrown on us is if you prefer your own kind, that is somehow hate. They assume they're telepathic. They can tell that you hate other people. I mean, I love my family more than my neighbors over here, but I like these guys over here. I don't hate them.
Well, let me drag up this quote, and I have not been able to triple, quadruple verify it, but it was in an article I did last week called Peace Through Violence. It's about the term white supremacist and about the idea, of hate, that it implies hate. Okay, here we go. Let me read this quote. Pride in one's race, and that does not imply contempt for other races, is also a normal and healthy sentiment. I have never regarded the Chinese or the Japanese as being inferior to ourselves. They belong to ancient civilizations, and I admit freely that their history is superior to our own. That's supposed to be Adolf Hitler. Don't know if he said it, but if that's true, then even Adolf Hitler was not a white supremacist. So who the hell is left?
No, he definitely was not a white nationalist, that's for sure. Ask the Slavs about that. He was a German nationalist, but yeah, he got along well with actually with Muslims and the Japanese. There's a lot of revisionism that happened there with him, but that's true. I mean, just because you like your own kind, I think that's just natural. It doesn't imply hate. And ironically, the people that make that argument are typically ones that are extremely tribal themselves with their ethnic tribe.
I mean, I wrote about this like in my book, The Redneck Manifesto. There was a sub part of a chapter where it was said hate explains everything. And this was back in 1996, and there was a book called A Force Upon the Plain, The American Militia Movement and the Politics of Hate. And it was written by a New York lawyer, Joseph Stern. And the night the Oklahoma City bombing happened, he said his son asked him, "Daddy, why did they do this?" And he bent over and he said, "Because they hate too much."
I laugh because that's such a funny meme, and I don't know why all these Jewish people do this, but you see it on Twitter, like, after Charlottesville, they always have an 8-year-old. My 8-year-old daughter asked me, "Daddy, is this the start of a new Holocaust?" I mean, it's so ridiculous. So I make fun of it.
That's another thing too. Like I bring up because my dad fought in World War II. My dad was like in his 40s by the time I was born, so there's a huge age gap there. But he was in the Air Force. He dropped bombs on Germany. My dad might have had something to do with Dresden. And I mean, Dresden was a literal Holocaust. The sidewalks were glowing. People were set on fire. That's what Holocaust means.
Yes.
But, and it's often said, like, if the British soldiers had known what would become of England, would they have even fought? But here's something from an author, John C. Wright, W-R-I-G-H-T. It's called The Usefulness of Hate. He says, the usefulness of accusing one's opposition of hate, of pretending he is moved by the darkest and most despicable of motives, that is useful to the point where no other weapon is needed in the arsenal, no other arrow in the quiver, no other argument on the lips, no other though in the head. I guess that's thought, no other thought in the head. He's got a typo here. It is a tool of infinite utility and zero cost. Like the catalytic philosopher's stone of myth, as an excuse, accusing the opposition of hatred creates infinite riches and is never consumed nor grows less. That's what I see all the time online. Basically, 99% of people argue online is, I'm the good guy, you're the bad guy. And it's like, no, I'm the good guy and you're the bad guy.
Right.
And so much of it is mind reading. Well, Trump says he wants this, but that's only because he really means And I see that everywhere. Don't they teach kids in school that's not an argument? You know, if I had to become Secretary of Education, to get rid of everything except reading, writing, arithmetic, drum their heads with the logical fallacies. I think there are 42 known logical fallacies. Teach them throughout grades 1 through 8. Well, I'm Catholic, so we went 1 through 8, or I was Catholic until I read enough of the Bible. And also make it clear what is objective and what is subjective. You can't prove hate. How can you? And that's what's creepy about the idea of hate crimes, because it's what was in your mind when you committed the crime, which is an extra crime. And that, to me, I mean, if that's not Orwellian or totalitarian, trying to crowbar into somebody's head and punish them for what's in their head, shouldn't that be like a form of diversity that people value? Like, isn't that a little deeper than skin color and sexuality and gender and all that other superficial shit?
Yeah, they use an interesting trick. They use our own altruism against us because it's specifically a white Christian thing. They've kind of learned our ethos or our Christianity, and they don't believe in it, but they use it against us. And I once asked, and I said, I mean this seriously, is there any other group besides whites who has ever felt guilt or about their historical past?
What do you think? Go ahead.
I never have. The closest maybe the Japanese with the Chinese occupation of World War II, maybe, but I can't think of any. For example, like with this whole hate thing, work on Genghis Khan. Do you think he'd give a damn if they went, you're exhibiting hate? See, in those days, it was God, including the Jews in the Old Testament, if you read it, that if you destroy your enemy, you slaughter them, you take them into slavery, that means you're in good favor. Your God likes you. You're doing things that please God. And so the idea, say they accuse Genghis Khan, you killed 6 million people. He probably would, you liars, I killed 10 million. Why are you trying to minimize my accomplishments? That was their mindset. That was the mindset of almost the whole world. But they because of Western civilization and our idea of Christianity, they figured they can use that against us. A morality they don't even hope to, because they're happy to kill us. They don't feel any guilt about it. But they're trying to trick us using our own morality.
See, I mean, some people think that the whites actually have a genetic disposition to being altruistic. I don't know. I wonder if it's just like a boiling the frog thing, if it's just so much propaganda, because the Vikings wouldn't take that shit. I mean,
I was just thinking that's pretty useless. And when I was living in Romania, I learned about Vlad Impaler. He was was Dracula, how he impaled all the Muslims. Our ancestors definitely were a lot rougher. So I think it's just more of a psychological thing that has happened to us fairly recently, actually. And so if we can break the psychological conditioning, I sound like Alex Jones, but if we can do that, I think we can go forward. No, it's not genetic, because if you look at the history of the white race, we have not avoided violence, sadly.
No, I'm sure you've read the Rudyard Kipling poem, "The Wrath of the Awakened Saxon," which is I've just read all the history. The distant mirrors about 10th century Europe or 14th century Europe, but it was violent. I mean, white people did violently. That was just the way it was. So I don't think it's something genetically does not change that quickly. I think it's just more recent, actually, in the 20th century, and certain groups that figured out using psychology to try to enslave us. I like this certain groups. Okay, well, we're actually talking about the Albanians, as I pointed out actually in the first episode. The Amish, okay, the Canadians, all of it.
Yeah, there's a certain group that was really interested in psychology and trying to manipulate people. Yeah, so they've been very good at that, and that's one of the things they use against us. So it doesn't work on me because I don't really care. You can't guilt me, because I don't feel the guilt what my ancestor did. Why should I?
This is something that's interesting to me because you, distanced or disavowed the alt-right after Heilgate, when Richard Spencer gave a speech and there were Sig Heils, but you don't seem to shy away from the JQ. That might be confusing to people.
Well,
can you? I guess the question would be: can you discuss alleged Jewish hostility toward whites, perhaps a Jewish influence over propaganda against whites, without being a Nazi? I know you can't say anything besides "I'm sorry for being white" without being called a Nazi. But how do you reconcile talking about perhaps groups that are hostile toward whites and that may have a disproportionate influence in media and banking without being a Nazi? Where's the dividing line? Is it just wearing the costumes and the Sig Heiling, or what's the difference?
Well, that's an interesting point, and in a lot of ways, I got to give kudos to the Jewish people. They're very smart about how to manipulate things, and I really mean that. I'm like, wow.
Oh, I read Mein Kampf on the way to working for a Jewish boss about 10 years ago on my iPhone on the way to work, and Hitler seemed to admire Jews.
But he talked about how they argue, and it is kind of interesting. It's very, I observed it. But one of the things they've done historically, and I talked about a case in Canada, the reason Canada doesn't have free speech is because there's this horrible neo-Nazi group in the 70s saying all sorts of mean things. It turned out, long story, but it turned out that Nazi group was funded by a Jewish group. So you would think, like, why would Jews fund a group that is just cartoonish, anti-Semite, and over the top? Because they were able to get their hate speech laws in, so it served their end. They kind of controlled it. So they were able to set up, you either love us and support us 100%, or you're a wacky neo-Nazi that everyone's going to hate and you probably deserve to die. That's the two extremes. And that's what I've seen that's happened, I think, within American culture.
With Hal Turner. Do you know who Hal Turner was? Yeah, he was paid. He was this allegedly anti-Semitic radio guy, and it turns out he was a Fed or financed by the Feds.
I'm sure there's some now. I mean, the ones that are most over the top, and that's the thing that I upset with Spencer, is he associated himself with the most over-the-top cartoonist anti-Semitism that normal people would never support, and that kind of discredited that whole movement because he was seen as a de facto leader. So, I think you can talk about any group. I talk about Jews, but I think you need to look at it sort of nuanced and not just be like all Jews are evil or genetically evil or anything like that. Or, there's obviously Bobby Fischer was a Jew, but he was a great fan of the tribe. But I think it needs to be discussed. And unfortunately, we seem to be in a position you either have to be like the Republicans, where they just literally get down on their knees and praise the Jews and say, whatever you want, we're going to give you, Israel, or you got to go daily stormer craziness that people think is silly. So
now, don't you and the Daily Stormer accuse each other of being Feds, right?
I've been very suspicious of the Daily Stormer for a lot of reasons. Andrew Anglin and Weave specifically, those two. I doubt how sincere they are.
Okay, it's time to administer you the white supremacist stress test. You have to pass there are two questions to determine whether, according to what is still the dictionary and Wikipedia definition of white supremacy, do you believe whites are genetically superior to all the races?
No, I believe every race has different abilities. That'd be kind of asking, like, breeds of dogs, is a bloodhound genetically superior to a greyhound? And the answer to that is, well, it depends what you mean. They are superior for scent tracking, but they're definitely not superior in speed of racing. So, no, there's differences between the races, but superior, no.
If you actually notice differences, and difference in physical abilities, susceptibility to diseases, different mean cognitive scores on intelligence tests, somehow that makes you a white supremacist, even if, say, Indians and Asians and Jews score higher than whites. Okay.
Well, do people ever watch or use their eyes? Like this, everyone loves the NFL. Look at the cornerbacks. The cornerbacks, they defend the wide receivers. People don't know football, and they're 100% black. 100% black.
Yeah, defenses are almost entirely black. NFL defenses,
especially you require the quickness and the twitch quickness, which is Africans have a higher ability in. So I guess you could consider me an African supremacist if I know that. But that's an example of racial differences. You don't see any Asians, you don't see any Mexicans, you don't even see whites in that position. So there are racial differences that are involved with IQ, that are involved with physical traits, that are involved with personality. Doesn't mean everyone in the group shares that trait, but it's a generalization.
Averages, yeah.
Exactly.
Just understanding statistics, basically. Okay, so you failed the first prong. The second prong is, do you think that whites should have control and domination over other races?
Not at all. In fact, I'm the opposite. I am more of, I think nationalism is better where people are in their separate countries.
All right. Well,
I think, in fact, controlling other races led to the issues that we're having today still because of slavery. That was a huge mistake. Just think what this country would be like if we never had slavery. That would be a lot nicer right now.
Well, I got to tell you, Paul, you are one piss poor white supremacist.
I know.
You fail on both, so you need to go to re-education camp and up your white supremacy game. Sir, always a pleasure to see your videos. Yeah, you have a pleasant day in Oklahoma, and I'll talk to you soon.
All right, thank you.
Hey there, boys and girls. This is your buddy Jim, the man with the sweetest ass in all of podcast land. I'm here to remind you that man does not live by his beautiful voice alone. So you need to go to my website, jimgoad.net, and buy all of my books. Buy 2 copies of each of my books just for safekeeping in case there is a natural disaster or civil unrest. jimgoad.net, where you can get the Redneck Manifesto, the Answer Me compilation, the New Church Ladies, a bunch of other stuff, and also, in about a week, a special edition reprint of Trucker Facts in Denial. jimgoad.net. Open your wallets and your heart.
Welcome to Red Letter Media's commentary track for the Just Ice League. I am Rich Evans, and with me are...
It's me, Mike.
And I'm Jay. Welcome to this crap.
Rich.
What?
Don't be negative.
We're watching the Justice League.
And this is our first shot of the film.
Why?
This is how we're starting it. Because they need to make you know that people liked Superman, and he was Superman. They're hoping that you just completely forget the last film where everybody hated Superman and wanted him dead.
Well, I'm assuming this is all Joss Whedon, and he kind of wisely realized we need to establish that Superman is actually a hero.
Yeah. But they don't do that in any organic way. They just hope that you'll forget the last film.
Well, this is a reshoot, and it's like what he had to work with. I gotta do something.
Yeah,
to establish that Superman was a hero.
This movie's almost like a soft reboot because it ignores so much of what Batman v Superman was doing and setting up.
And you can tell this costume was not meant to be seen in bright lighting.
Yes.
Yes. So Superman's saving the day at a burning building or something, right?
It's a classic.
But they didn't want to like have the budget to reshoot a whole scene where he saves people from a burning building.
Well, they started it with fun cell phone footage, which is in no way like Spider-Man: Homecoming, which came out before this. That also started with fun cell phone footage. It's just a complete coincidence.
Do you remember Peter Parker's CGI'd out mustache? Oh wait,
it was very awkward.
Did you see the guy online? You know, like how much did they spend on the Superman mustache? It was like $4 million.
More like 30.
Just on the mustache.
Some guy with like a $500 computer just did it for free, for fun, and it looks better.
That's not surprising. I mean, I really think it's a matter of just they ran out of time. I mean, there's so many effects in this that look bad, and I'm assuming it's just they had a release date to make, and they were gonna reach it come hell or high water.
I have not seen this video online. It's actual video? It's not a still, right?
No, I think it's video. If I'm remembering, they took some shots of him from Mission Impossible, and they removed the mustache that he had for Mission Impossible.
Gotcha.
So we start out with classic Superman saving people from a burning building, and now we have classic Batman on a rooftop. This is just like the opening of the Tim Burton movie.
Yeah,
kind of.
Stylistically, it kind of looks that way.
Yeah, but they're doing whatever they can to make you think you're watching classic superheroes and not the Zack Snyder crap.
Is it?
Is that Tinkerbell? What was that? Oh, it's
Mike,
big.
It's a parademon. You know what these things remind me of, these parademons? And this is an obscure reference, but do you know the Chicago, he goes to cons and stuff? Zombie Kitty? Do you remember Zombie Kitty?
I do, yes.
It looks like Zombie Kitty, if anyone wants to look that up. He's like a Chicago con celebrity.
Right. Yes, he has those glowing eyes. And
yes.
That costume.
We're already at a loss for words.
Just everything. Does Zack Snyder still get directorial credit?
He does. He gets sole directorial credit.
Did Joss Whedon insist on that?
I don't know. I mean, there's all sorts of theories about, like when the movie came out, there was like somebody tweeted that they thought Steppenwolf sucked as a villain, and Zack Snyder liked the tweet. So there's all sorts of, like, just based on that, there's this whole, like, theory that they hate each other, which is, like, pretty far-fetched, but, I don't know. I don't know.
Wait,
anymore.
was Steppenwolf not in the Zack Snyder version?
It's all very vague. The original, if we're going time-wise, the original idea was, first of all, there was Man of Steel.
Yes.
And Zack Snyder next wanted to do Man of Steel 2. And the studio was like, well, Man of Steel wasn't as big of a hit as we were expecting. So we need to bring in Batman, like, immediately. It's like damage control. So he was sort of forced into doing Batman v Superman. And then he's like, okay, well, if I'm doing Batman v Superman, then the next movie will be the Justice League, and it'll be like a trilogy. But I have all these ideas for it, and it's going to be long, so we're going to make it 2 movies. Justice League will be 2 parts. And then Batman v Superman came out, was met with horrible negative reaction. So the studio's like, Justice League is only going to be 1 part. And this was already, like, well into pre-production. And then they decided after they were already filming the movie that they had to add more humor. So that's when Joss Whedon came on to punch up the script while they were filming the movie.
Okay.
And then they had, like, a rough assembly of the movie, and they're like, this is a fucking disaster. Bring on Joss Whedon to direct new scenes.
Well,
which may or may not have happened regardless of the unfortunate tragedy that happened to, with Zack Snyder and his daughter.
Yes,
that's what they were saying was the reason that Joss Whedon took over. But there's also, like, theories that would have happened anyway.
Oh, so you're getting conspiratorial.
Is that a conspiracy, or isn't that just common sense?
Yeah, it really was just, like, according to, the reaction, that the rough assembly of the film was unwatchable.
It's fascinating.
Yeah.
It really is.
Well, here's the thing. Is it too little too late for the DC cinematic universe?
Yes. It was too little too late with Batman v Superman.
Isn't the whole superhero... I'm sure the public will prove me wrong, but isn't that ready to start going away?
No.
Infinity War is coming out.
Yes.
And doesn't that just feel like the conclusion?
It does, and I think it kind of in some ways will be. There'll be more movies after that,
yeah.
But as far as, like, this era, I think that's the whole idea, is that'll kind of wrap it up.
It's like DC showing up when the party's ending.
Yes. Well, now with, like, because, like, the Aquaman movie is still in the works, and the Flash movie, it's like they're past their prime. It's like now you can go to, like, the county fair and see Everclear. Like, it's just not. No, it's over.
Hey, I like Everclear,
and that's fine. But they're not playing stadiums anymore.
I kind of see what you're saying. Yeah, I don't think it's a fair analogy, but.
That last shot, by the way, with the cardboard sign that said "I tried," that was just Zack Snyder. That was real footage.
I like how Superman is no longer around to save that lady and her son from racist skinheads who want to kick her oranges over.
Won't someone think of the oranges?
The whole world is in mourning. The loss of Superman. Store clerks all around the world are suffering from Racist orange kicking.
Oh, I love this scene that feels tacked on because Wonder Woman was popular. Oh my god, Wonder Woman doesn't do anything in a film! We need a Wonder Woman action scene! Throw it in!
Hey, do you think Marvel's scrambling to shoot extra Black Panther scenes now? For Infinity War?
No, because Marvel's smart.
Yeah, they knew that Black Panther would go over well.
Rich, have you seen Black Panther yet?
No.
Why not?
Same reason I haven't seen Thor Ragnarok. I'm just waiting until it's on video. I don't care that much. I care a little bit, but I can wait.
I'm gonna guess this is a Joss Whedon shot. This feels very Joss Whedon-y.
Well, it's not like dark and glowering. And
well, none of the movie's dark anymore because they
and-
completely changed the color palette in post-production, which makes everything look like garbage.
I mean, I presume this whole scene is Joss Whedon because Wonder Woman was popular.
Yeah.
Give us more Wonder Woman.
What I discovered, I was doing a little bit of research on this, and I was a little surprised to see this. The Wonder Woman movie, like everybody like praised it and championed it or whatever. It didn't even do as well at the box office as Suicide Squad.
Really?
Which shocked me, because like the way people talk about the movie, you would think it's like the biggest success in the DC, cinematic universe.
It's okay. It's a good movie. It's
Well,
not.
I'm not talking about the quality of the movie. I'm talking about box office wise.
Yeah.
It's a fine movie. The third act turns into typical, action schlock, but it goes. Man of Steel did decent box office. Batman v Superman did really well, and that's almost completely attributed to opening weekend, because after that it just plummeted. And then it's been gradually going downhill since then. Suicide Squad, and then less than Suicide Squad was Wonder Woman, and then the lowest grossing is the Justice League movie, where they all come together.
But people kept talking about the Wonder Woman movie and how amazing it was. I'm sure politics had nothing to do with it.
Well, I'm surprised more people didn't champion this with Wonder Woman in it. They just completely gave up after the Wonder Woman solo movie.
She doesn't do that much in this.
But she's in it, Rich. And she's a woman.
I think the Wonder Woman reaction was more, being blindsided because it was decent.
Well, yeah, that too.
And it had a female director. This has two male directors, so that makes a difference, I guess.
Yeah, I mean, like when they announced the Wonder Woman movie, I was like, I don't want to watch that. Like, I just don't care. Like, same with the Aquaman movie.
Sure.
Wonder Woman's all right. I like Wonder Woman more than Aquaman. I know nothing about Aquaman. Wonder Woman, Linda Carter, the old TV show, the Lasso of Truth. I know more about it.
Yeah.
And so I was like, okay, but what are you gonna do? And then when it came out, you're just expecting just like trash. It came out, it's like, oh, hey, okay. I think that was the funnest DC movie.
Oh yeah, by far.
I can't really think of any, and I think that's what people were so surprised by.
By the way, you could tell that was a Joss Whedon scene because she didn't just stand there and let all of those people get shot down.
You mean she was a superhero that acted like a superhero?
Okay, let's talk plot now.
Oh no.
Okay.
They gotta find the cubes.
The Demogorgon, what is that thing? The Parademon had cubes on it. And so now Ben Affleck is looking for someone that knows about cubes. Is that what's happening?
That's what I was going to ask you guys. I know it's like I think we talked over a scene with him and Alfred in his Batman control room, and the idea is something's coming. Something bad's coming. We got to put the team together. And I think he got that information from the flying monster.
Yes.
On the rooftop. I'm not sure though. It could have come from.
No, it came from that scene. It's a duct tape scene. No, there's no connection to the last movie, really.
Why was the flying monster on the rooftop?
I don't know.
Because they needed a scene to connect all this crap together because the movie was a disaster.
So then the assumption is that Batman has been doing his Batman thing, researching, gathering information, and he secretly knows about, because this was in the last film. Remember his computer?
Yeah.
The laptop showed the symbols for all the famous characters.
Right.
The Flash, this man, Waterman, the Flash, Wonder Woman, and so Batman knew like these people existed. He somehow knows that in this remote fishing village there's an Aquaman.
Because sending a single parademon with pictures of cubes on his back to Gotham was part of his elaborate plan to take 3 things.
And, okay, so Steppenwolf, interdimensional demon monster, wants 3 cubes. It's kind of like the Infinity Gauntlet, right? Where you get all the magic stones in it, and then he has ultimate powers, right?
I think ish, yeah, sure.
What I'm trying to say, Rich, is this is the movie we need right now. That's what I'm trying to say. People working together.
We need proper representation of parademons.
Yes, yes. So this.
Well, the original villain, when this was going to be 2 movies, was going to be Darkseid. Do you know anything about Darkseid, Rich?
He's like DC's equivalent of Thanos.
Okay.
A lot of people would say it's the other way around. I don't care, whatever.
But who is Steppenwolf in all of this?
He's like, I'm not too familiar with it. He's either Darkseid's son or one of his generals.
It says like
possibly both.
His underling.
Okay.
Yeah,
I don't know. I don't know if Steppenwolf was involved in the original idea. Oh, look at that green screen.
That's not a green screen.
That's not a quickly slapped together reshot moment there. But I know the original villain of the 2-parter was going to be Darkseid. I don't know if Steppenwolf was even in it at that point. And it's possible the original assembly of this movie, the villain was Darkseid. I think there's some debate about that. And then they just because he's just a big CG monster anyway, so you can replace him with anything. And so I think they changed it to Steppenwolf for some reason. Maybe hoping that if this movie did well, they'd put Darkseid in the sequel or something.
Yeah. A lesser villain.
It's fine. No, it's not. It's really not.
I will say, for all this movie's problems, at least it's not painful to sit through. Hey, you were the one that was praising this the most on our Half of the Bag episode.
It turns into schlock at one point, which I enjoy.
Yeah, that's the fine stuff. But I mean, there's nothing like Batman v Superman is just so awful.
The experience of watching this movie, Jay, is it's the cinematic equivalent of just sitting there doing nothing for 2 hours. I mean, it may as well be a blank screen.
No, it's kind of fun to try and pick apart what the reshot bits are.
It's better than a blank screen. I'll give it that, Rich.
Unlike Batman v Superman. I think I'd probably rather be looking at a blank screen, except for maybe the actual fight between the 2 of them, because it's just so stupid. When he's Superman's beating Batman over the head with a toilet. That's some good stuff.
There's some good fight stuff in Batman versus Superman.
Is there?
Like almost in a. I always think back to that early fan film where it was Batman versus Predator.
Yeah.
And it was really well done.
Yeah.
I mean, essentially that's what it is. It's just.
Did you ever see the fan film Batman versus Darth Vader?
No.
God.
They've done this.
I'm not surprised that exists.
Is it well done or is it bad?
It's actually well done, but it's as dumb as you'd think. You know? I mean.
Yeah. I mean, that's that kind of stuff. I bet you if you just made a movie about characters versus other characters with almost no plot, it would be a hit film.
There's 2 different endings. One where Darth Vader wins, one where Batman wins.
Well, that's not fun. People want to know who wins.
That's some indecision right there.
I'm sure. Has anyone ever done? Because people can do the CGI graphics that are almost on Hollywood level now.
Yeah.
You know, has anyone ever done a full-on battle of a Galaxy-class starship versus a Star Destroyer?
I have not seen one that wasn't just done with cheesy editing.
Yeah.
So.
Yes, I've seen the cheesy editing ones where they show it on the view screen and Picard's looking, but like a full-on space battle. Not even cutting in clips from the movies. Just straight up space battle. I would love to see that.
There's a good video floating around. It's super nerdy, but it's not video, but it's somebody just detailing how they think the battle would go, like a full-on war between the Empire and the Federation.
Oh.
And it would be like a really good season of Deep Space Nine.
Yeah. Yeah, it's interesting. It's that would be that. Oh, we're supposed to be talking about this.
It doesn't matter. This is a boring Zack Snyder scene.
Look, we even diverged into Star Trek during our commentary. It's fine.
Yeah. I don't know.
You can tell this is a Zack Snyder scene because there's no jokes and Billy Crudup's in it.
Crudo.
Is that how you pronounce it?
Yeah.
I don't believe that for a second.
It's not Crudup.
I think
you
it's
like
Crudup.
you clumsy American jackass.
He's American. Billy Crudup's American.
Isn't that a French name? Crudup. I mean, come on.
Crudup or shut up.
And it is Gal Gadot.
Gal Gadot. Everyone says Godot.
Yeah.
I think we've said Godot.
We have, yeah, because it looks like it should be Godot.
Yeah. We're overthinking it.
Look, it's Chicago.
No, this is Gotham or Metropolis or whatever.
Oh.
They're the same city. It's like the Twin Cities in Minneapolis.
Yeah.
That is the dumbest fucking thing.
Is there anything in the comics that nothing like that? Hey, look, it's Miles Dyson. He's still working at the same facility.
Joe Morton.
Like Gotham and Metropolis are both together. Why would Superman just be the guardian of just Metropolis? Like, if a criminal crosses the border into Metropolis, does Superman just go, oh, well.
It's out of my hands now.
He's out of my jurisdiction.
Here's the answer, because comic books are stupid.
I think comic book movies are stupid, Mike, because in the comics, Gotham isn't right next to Metropolis.
Is Metropolis basically where New York is in comics? Or is it just some undisclosed?
There's a map, and I think it's somewhere on in the area.
Okay. Does New York exist?
I believe it does, yes.
Because that's Spider-Man's turf, but that's Marvel.
But that's a different, yeah.
That's a different company.
Because, well, Superman was created in 1929 or something, 1930. And Metropolis! They just made up a fake city.
Right.
And now it's some schmuck's job to make a map nowadays. Because nerds are, where is it? But this is a comic book you sold for 1 cent. So you could sell bubblegum ads. And now this is the most important thing in our society. It's just fucking embarrassing.
I could be wrong, but I think in the comic books, Metropolis is in Rhode Island.
Oh. That's surprising.
Yes, it is. Because that's the only reason I remember, because I'm like, Rhode Island?
Something weird. Oh.
That doubles the population of Rhode Island.
Yeah.
Cyborg is an embarrassing character. Like,
why do you say that?
Because it's just like, it's so generic. There's nothing like.
Well, I think he had more. I mean, there's shots in the early trailer of him not in this robot suit, so I think there was more backstory.
No, they cut
to
the
him.
flashbacks.
But there was clearly more to him in the original, whatever Zack Snyder's assembly version of it.
He kind of looks like if you go to the dollar store and you find like a knockoff Chinese toy of something, you know?
Yeah.
Cyborg
Man.
Yeah.
Cyborg Man. Like, and like this is the best. Like some slave in China drew like sculpted out of something. It's fine. Sell it in a dollar store. Like, I don't know. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe Cyborg is the most interesting character.
You're just basing this on the movie. So it's hard to say because who knows how different it is from the comics.
Yeah,
I don't know anything about.
It just seems so like such a bland idea. Man mixed with cyborg parts. A football star, accidentally or was he? It was in an accident.
I don't know Cyborg's origin because I don't give a shit.
They explain it in the movie, Rich. Even I know it. He was in a horrible accident, and then Joe Morton used the magic cube, and he told the magic cube to make his son whole again, and it added cyborg technology to make his son functional again. Didn't you see the fucking movie? I can't even remember my own name, and I remember this. What is wrong with
Why
you?
is the only movie you remember the Justice League?
I don't know. It has something to do with trauma. Might be.
So now we're on Asgard.
No.
Why do they use bows and arrows?
Why not?
I don't know.
What does it matter?
What do you want them to use? Machine guns?
They don't have machine guns on
They have
Asgard.
magic.
They have magic. They have a mother box. It's sort of coincidental that all the mother boxes are in places that are related to superheroes. Like, how did just some random person not stumble on a mother box? I mean, I guess technically Cyborg is the result of the Mother Box.
Yeah.
It's not like he was a superhero to begin with.
Isn't one under the ocean?
Aquaman has one, Wonder Woman's people have one, and then the other one, I think it was literally just lying on the ground.
Where?
Somewhere. Didn't they explain that the humans just threw there somewhere in the middle of nowhere and forgot about it? And,
Did they bury
and
it?
then, like 100 years later, some scientists found it, and then he turned his son into a cyborg.
You remember in the Suicide Squad movie when they find that ancient ruins and then they just immediately break it?
Wait, we're missing the grand reveal of our villain.
Oh my god, he just kind of shows up.
He's so complex and interesting.
He just shows up on the secret island that nobody's supposed to know about. I guess maybe he has like a tracking thing or some sort of connection to the Mother Box. This is all possible. We're not paying attention to the film, so it's hard to say.
How come nobody says DC has a villain problem?
Because DC has other problems.
That's true. DC is a problem. That's what all the headlines should read.
It's not so much of a villain problem as it is a story problem. In my opinion.
Yeah. No, people always say that about Marvel, though. Marvel has a villain problem.
Do they?
Which is
that really true?
They have a lot of generic villains, but they've certainly had more interesting villains than any of these DC movies.
Loki, Ego. They've had some. Marvel's had some good villains at this point.
I like Ego a lot. I like what's his face? Michael B. Jordan.
Mm-hmm.
What's his name? I already forgot.
Warmonger.
Yeah, Warmonger. No, that's not right.
Killmonger.
Killmonger.
The Mandarin.
Which everybody hates, even though it's wonderful.
I love that so much.
Well, that was a twist.
That's what makes it interesting.
That was a fun twist.
Yes. And that's another thing Marvel has done a few times with their movies, is have fun twists with the villains. The reveal in Spider-Man Homecoming is great. But here, our villain just shows up for the box and people ride horses.
Why didn't he do this years ago?
Because the movie's happening now.
It's a good answer.
Like the excuse in the movie, right, is Superman's dead. So now it's safe for Steppenwolf. Yeah, I'm going to call him Steppenwolf.
Stephen.
It's safe for him to come and take the boxes.
Even though Superman's only been on Earth for a couple years.
What about the hundreds of years before there was a Superman? Couldn't he do it then?
This is a good question.
When has Superman defended the Earth? He just murders people. You just go to Superman and you say, hey, you want to help me blow shit up? He's probably going to say yes.
No, Rich, everybody loves Superman, according to this movie.
According to the things people say,
Yeah.
and not the things that the movie shows us, yeah, Superman's a hero.
You have to, and I think this was their intention with this movie, is they hoped that people would just forget what happened in the other movies. Because you have to for any of this to make any sense. The world misses Superman. We need Superman now more than ever. Really? Since when?
Oh my god.
And I would say that's one of the few things this movie gets right, is that they make Superman act like Superman finally. Took 3 movies, but they did it.
I just want Christopher Reeve to show up from another dimension and just save the DC universe. Things have gone terribly wrong here. I have to do something.
Him and Adam West, they'll team up.
Didn't you have an idea about that?
It's not really mine. I heard somebody else say it that was saying that you save the DC cinematic universe by having this version of the Justice League just basically turn out to be villains.
Yeah.
And then they have to fight the real Justice League, who are good guys from a different universe.
But if you did that, then you'd piss off the people that really love these DC movies and defend them for some bizarre reason.
Well, here's the thing. The people that defend these DC movies are just DC fanboys. So if you do another DC movie with heroic versions of the characters, they'll still like that because it says DC on it.
Rich, I think you just don't understand Zack Snyder's deconstructionist vision. He's deconstructing what the superhero is.
Neither did Warner Brothers because they fired his ass.
I wonder if they thought bringing in Joss Whedon to like rewrite it and then ultimately direct new scenes, if they thought that would actually salvage the movie, or if it was just like scrambling to get something that resembled a likable movie. Because the only way, I mean, it's like the only way to salvage, if the original like Zack Snyder cut was like unwatchable, like the reports say, like the only way would just be to reshoot the whole movie. Like you can't just like get a shot here and shoot a new scene there and combine that with Zack Snyder stuff and have it make any sense. Which is what this movie is.
I don't know. This movie's so confusing.
Yeah. I mean, we got this stupid scene, which is clearly a Joss Whedon scene.
Yeah.
Where they're talking about someone's thirsty, says something about thirsty, which means horny. I don't even remember what the context is, but
Martha Kent and Lois Lane are having coffee at an office.
Yeah, she came to her office for no reason.
That's fine.
In a scene that has nothing to do with anything, just to remind you that Lois Lane exists.
Wait, isn't there some kind of setup where there's some kind of connection to Superman coming back to life? Martha shows up when Superman's evil, and or she shows up.
Lois Lane shows up.
Superman, but Martha's involved somehow.
She comes in later, I think.
See, Rich, I don't remember everything about the Justice League. Is that what we're watching?
Yes. Remember, Lois is the key.
Martha was the key in the last movie.
Well, the Flash actually showed up in the last movie and said that Lois Lane was going to be the key in the next movie.
Oh, yeah. And I guess we theorized when we did our half in the bag that might be for a future movie, since it's not referenced in this movie at all. But
well, I'm sure that was the original plan.
Yeah. Yeah, that was completely scrapped, so now it's just a random scene in Batman v Superman that doesn't connect to anything.
I have a radical idea.
Oh, my God.
And I'd like to propose it to the Hollywood industry.
Yeah.
Okay? We were talking about Batman versus Predator.
Yeah.
Batman versus Darth Vader.
Yeah.
I'm watching this right now, and there's two elderly women drinking coffee. And there's no fighting happening.
Uh-huh.
My proposal is this. DC takes a dramatically different business approach.
Okay.
Marvel, you keep making your 2-hour, 20-minute long movies with characters and wacky stuff. Take your $200 million, right, and make a plotless, 30-minute long fight scene where the Justice League versus so-and-so and so-and-so. And then make that 30-minute long thing, $200 million, nothing but pure superhero action.
Uh-huh.
Put that in the theater, charge admission, and everyone who would go see this 2-hour-long stinker would go watch that. Right? Because you're not watching this for the story.
Are you saying stop wasting our time?
And the plus to that is that in the time it takes to screen one film, you could screen it 4 times because it's only a half an hour long. Right?
Would you charge full admission?
Yeah.
Who's going to pay full admission for a 30-minute sequence?
Oh, my God. Parents would love that because they don't have to sit there. DC fanboys would love it because it's exactly what they want distilled down into a show.
They don't have to worry.
It's what they want, but they'd still think it were bad because they expect a movie to be 2 hours long, and they would be confused.
Well, no, you tell them this is the Justice League versus Darkseid and his army. You maybe have 2 minutes of plot. Superman, gather your team.
That's basically every fan film you're talking about, is that?
Yes, a big budget fan film that's 30 minutes long.
Like this idea is 7 years ahead of its time.
Okay, you think
within 7 years we'll have this. Within 7 years.
You think so?
Yeah.
Well, I want to take credit for it. Because you could quadruple your profits.
Right now, it's too radical an idea, and it's too soon. It's too soon. They need to be eased into this nonsense, Mike.
Well, I think they when they made this movie, they were still going under the, like this scene here is all backstory and explaining Steppenwolf. They're still going by the assumption that this is a general audience going to see this movie, and they need to know what's happening. But I think what you're suggesting is the only people that are going to go see it are the DC fanboys that'll see this anyway, the ones that actually defend the Zack Snyder movies. So, like, they don't need to know who they already know Steppenwolf. So eliminate all that crap, is what you're saying.
And they don't care about crap like this, characters talking. I'm saying drop the pretext that this is a movie. You know what I mean? It's kind of like the analogy we made with Rogue One being essentially Star Wars porn.
Drop the pretext that this is a story.
That's yes, same thing. Movie story, but yeah, more accurately described, Rich. Because Rogue One was Star Wars porn, but we had to endure scenes where Forrest Whitaker babbled about something. And then we could get to the action, right?
Uh-huh.
Just get rid of that. I mean, it's an analogy. Porn is a proper analogy because, you could have... it's like having a 2-hour-long porno with 15 minutes of hardcore moments and 30 minutes of story. You know what I mean?
Anyone that watches porn now just goes to Pornhub and watches clips. No one watches a porno.
Yeah, a 2-hour-long...
Nobody sits through a feature-length porno.
Yeah, so you have a 30-minute-long film with maybe 2 little 5-minute vignettes of different kinds of action scenes, and then the last 20 minutes is a big action scene. And this could be applicable to Star Wars, a stormtrooper battle. Now we go up into space. Nothing happens plot-wise. Just stop it.
What else does Warner Brothers own? You take this to the next level, not only just pure action, but you just crossover action, pointless crossover action.
Yeah, exactly.
Batman versus Gremlins.
There you go. Yeah, you can use the crossover potential.
Don't bring Gremlins into this.
Well, what else does Warner Brothers own? This is a goldmine.
Well, now Disney owns Fox, right?
Yeah.
So how about this?
Potentially.
Your first one, Avengers versus X-Men.
Yeah.
30 minutes.
Yeah.
You
that one's going to happen. That'll be the next. That'll be what they build to after Infinity War.
Yes, but we don't need the story. Nobody wants the story because there is none. It's just bad guy wants to do bad thing.
Yeah.
That's every story. So just get rid of the story. I would go watch 30 minutes of the Avengers fighting the X-Men, and I would leave, and I'd be happy about it. I want to see... It would be like... It's like Civil War. You wait that whole movie to get to that tarmac fight at the airport, right? It's so boring. I just want to get to the Avengers fighting each other.
Star Wars versus Aliens.
There you go.
A fucking xenomorph on a Star Destroyer.
As far as Warner Brothers goes, I was just looking up Warner Brothers properties, and Warner Brothers owns Caddyshack. So you can have Steppenwolf versus Batman versus Caddyshack.
You have Tony Stark on the golf course.
No, Tony Stark isn't Warner Brothers.
Oh, Warner. Never mind. It's Bruce Wayne on the golf course in Caddyshack.
I like the idea of Tony Stark using gadgets to like route out the
gopher.
Hold on, boys. I'll fix this. And it's like his little like missiles flying through the gopher hole.
Jarvis giving him gopher updates.
And the gopher just keeps eluding all of Tony Stark's technology. No.
Would the gopher get mutated at some point, and then it becomes like a big villain?
The gopher would fight with Rocket Raccoon.
Oh, hey, that's perfect.
Yeah. But listen, Jay, no, you can't bring Caddyshack in.
You can always bring Caddyshack in.
That's 14 years down the road.
Okay,
when things get really
that's when they're getting real desperate. I understand.
It has to be similar franchises. The Rich was talking 20th Century Fox. We got X-Men versus Aliens.
We got Die Hard. What can you do with Die Hard?
I'm thinking we stick.
Stick with the sci-fi.
We stick with sci-fi fantasy right off the bat. Yeah, because
you could do John McClane versus the Predator.
Hey, there you go. Predator's Earthbound.
Yeah.
Oh, remember Justice League?
Oh yeah, we're still waiting for. I'm literally sitting here waiting for the Justice League to be assembled, so that they could fight a CGI a character from a video game. Can we just get to that? Listen, DC, take my new model. It's going to be real successful for you, because that's all the bearded fat guys want. Maybe give them a food break.
Intermission? Intermissions will come back.
Intermission,
Let's
yeah.
all
But they'll
go
be
to the
every 20
lobby.
minutes because that's all they'll sit through.
Maybe like it'll be like dinner. You have pizza before you watch this 30-minute long film.
Okay. But that's a part of the scheduled time?
Yes.
Like half an hour dedicated to dinner, and then the short film will start.
People bring food to you.
Free pizza with a deluxe ticket.
Yes. yeah. Deluxe ticket comes with pizza. And then you can watch your favorite superheroes fight each other on screen and get out of there.
Hey, speaking of eating pizza.
Oh, look. Now, that is not product placement, right? That's quite
no,
surprising.
No, that is surprising.
You know what? It might have been. I'm looking for like logo swapping here with like blurred
or like CGI'd a new box over it.
Like they shot it with generic logo, right? And then they pitched it to Pizza Hut and they're like, no, we'll pass. Oh, fuck it, They do that all the time. They swap out logos and things all the time.
Well, he's driving a Mercedes.
That's true.
Well,
You can't double up your product placement, Mike. That was the Mercedes product placement shot. You can't also have Domino's in there. Mercedes would get mad.
people who drive Mercedes don't eat fucking Domino's pizza.
Poor Jeremy Irons. I feel bad that he got roped into this nonsense. He deserves better, like the Dungeons and Dragons movie.
You'll never let him live that down, will you, Jay?
It's possibly the best performance in any movie ever.
It's just a paycheck for him.
That's more that he's given it. He's doing. He's seen what he can get away with in that Dungeons and Dragons movie.
Maybe he was just drunk. You don't know.
That's not mutually. Those two things aren't mutually exclusive.
Okay, Rich.
Yeah.
Here's a scene where Gal Gadot secretly talks to Cyborg via AOL Instant Messenger. Isn't this exciting? This is where you go on the bathroom break. Hey, look, Toronto.
It's most of the movie. Oh my God, they all drive Mercedes.
They're also rich. Jazz festival. I just look at details when I watch these movies. I like set design.
I think that sign in the background there said hot yoga. Is that a thing? Hot yoga?
I don't know. Maybe it said hot yogurt.
There's nothing better than heated up yogurt.
That's an idea that's 7 years ahead of its time.
Warm yogurt? Oh, God.
The only part of his...
a yoga / yogurt place, right? Yoga-gurt?
Oh, yeah, I'm getting sucked in by the dialogue.
She says, "You have gifts. You can help us stop flying space bugs."
His gift is that he's a robot man.
Is it offensive that they try to take this story a little bit seriously?
Kind of, yeah.
Well, in some scenes, and then it turns into complete crap in other scenes where they're just, like, being goofy with it.
Steppenwolf's collecting the 3 boxes, and if he collects the 3 boxes, he'll win. Because the 3 boxes make the Earth turn into apocalypse. Why does DC keep wanting to terraform Earth? What's the big deal with that, man?
They have nothing to do with these characters.
They figure Marvel's got the blue laser thing down.
I think the blue laser era is over. They haven't done that in a while.
Now we're terraforming Earth.
Well, that's DC instead of Marvel. But
do you remember Man of Steel had both a terraforming Earth and a blue laser?
That's true, yeah.
Oh, we now get to see Aquaman doing something heroic.
We need an Aquaman heroic scene.
I don't know. I just don't get it.
It's a movie. People need to say things.
Why did they make this?
Because they wanted because the Avengers made $1 billion.
Yes.
Yeah.
They made the Man of Steel movie. It did okay, but it didn't do great. It didn't do Marvel numbers. So they immediately rushed to the team-up movie. That's DC, instead of like taking their time, just constantly, because the whole idea is like, you can say why did they make this movie, but it's like, if you make a movie with decent likable characters, then you're gonna be fine. The problem is, like, this movie rushes into just assuming you like these characters that we haven't even really been introduced to.
Well, and they're not like, I mean, maybe it's just Aquaman, but they're not like the characters that we imagine. I mean, Aquaman, I just think of the guy with the green suit.
Yes.
Like, it's so silly to me. And then it's like, here it's like, how do we make Aquaman like serious and realistic?
Yeah.
And it's like, what?
We change it so much that it doesn't resemble the original character at all.
But that's just how Aquaman rolls. I think even in the comics.
Oh, really?
There's long-bearded Aquaman who was missing a hand and he had a harpoon for an arm. That was the thing for a while in the comics. Because how do we make people like Aquaman? We can't do the Super Friends.
How about they just give up on Aquaman? We don't need Aquaman.